I explored Aurora with David. He's a student from my clinical group, and we drove around neighborhoods near East Middle School, which is where we've been placed for our community health clinicals. And from a public health perspective, I think some of this community's biggest challenges all had a common denominator, which was poverty. It was clear that this community lacks funds that other communities are privileged to have. For example, the open fields and parking lots and areas around stores where a lot of people work were really worn down and dirty. The fields were full of weeds and trash, a lot of dirt. They weren't really appealing to look at. In actuality, they kind of resembled an abandoned lot or land. The parking lots were full of trash. They didn't look like they were being well taken care of either. The insides of the stores were also similar to those in that they didn't look like they were being well maintained. Shelves were empty. We were seeing a lot of product on the floor. And this is important for the public because these type of conditions affect the health of the public. They aren't sufficient working environments or areas where people should be spending a lot of time because they pose a threat to their health. These environments that are dirtier and are unsafe hold more risks for illnesses and injuries for the public. It also appeared that the public roads needed work. There were a lot of potholes, trash, and they were uneven, which poses a threat to the safety and efficiency of the public that's trying to get around their town. Poverty also affected the schools. At one of the high schools we drove by, we saw football practice. However, none of the athletes were wearing pads, uniform, or helmets. And this is a safety threat to every single one of those team members. Without the proper equipment, these students are at a higher risk for injuries for themselves and their teammates. A big thing that David and I did notice was that it did take about an hour and a half to even run into a park while we were driving around the community. I think this is due to the poverty in this area. They don't really have the funds to be building a lot of parks or maintaining them. This lack of playgrounds poses a threat to the community because these children are limited to the places that they can go socialize, to go get some exercise, and these types of lack of resources basically increases their chances of developing health and mental health issues. However, although this community had some outstanding challenges, I did notice some prominent assets. The public transportation was great. It seemed to be running efficiently, and it seemed to be utilized by the public a lot. There were clear signs and benches for the different bus stops, and I frequently saw bus stops around Aurora, especially at the entrances of shopping centers, which is awesome. And then although we did see a lot of people riding the buses and taking advantage of that, which is awesome, we did also see people frequently walking to and from their destinations, which is honestly a great form of exercise and is a positive for their health. Another great asset of this community was the rehab and mental health centers that we came across. It was great that this community has these facilities and advertise that they can help people, even people who don't have health insurance, they can help them get the health insurance they need. And we also did find an urgent/emergent care facility besides UCH, which is awesome. The only downside was that it was kind of far from the neighborhoods, so that could make it difficult and unappealing for people to want to get medical attention. And then while driving through the different neighborhoods, I noticed that there were a lot of basketball hoops outside houses. And this was awesome to see, especially since there seemed to be a lack of playgrounds for kids. So it still means that kids are still getting outside, getting some type of exercise, play, and socialization. And I really hope that they were being used a lot. One of the greatest assets that I noticed of this community was that there were a lot of shopping centers. Specifically, there were shopping centers that had like grocery stores, gyms, and childcare all in one place. These type of centers are very important for a community like this because there are so many resources in one area that it makes it really easy for the public, especially since a lot of individuals are using public transportation, which can be very time consuming. Some of the most unexpected aspects about this community was the amount of liquor stores and empty liquor containers I saw in the public. I know liquor stores are typically popular in community, however, I didn't think that it would be this drastically different. Like seeing that many more in this community. I would in the future like to do some research to see what would be the purpose of this, if there was something from the community linking it to the amount of liquor stores. It was also surprising to see when we went into King Soopers that the longest line was for cigarettes or for tobacco and lottery tickets, which obviously liquor and alcohol are not the best thing for our health, so that poses a threat to the public. And it was also very interesting to see that after like 2.5, 3 hours of driving around that we saw only one Starbucks. And that's really unusual because you usually see multiple Starbuckses in one community. However, that wasn't the case for this part of Aurora. So it's really interesting to see how businesses choose their locations for their facilities. I think the most important takeaway message for me from this assignment was realizing just how different communities are. In class, we've learned about the resources available, or how the resources available to different socioeconomic classes differ. However, I didn't realize how true this was. After driving around Aurora, I was surprised to see how drastically different this was from where I grew up. I've never really noticed a lack of resources available to me, such as libraries, grocery stores, urgent care facilities, etc. So it was really eye-opening to drive around Aurora and realize how far or limited all of these resources were from each other. I tried to imagine living in this area and realized how long it would take to accomplish simple daily tasks. And I think it's important to keep this in mind and to always have an open mind when we are treating our patients and realize that their lack of participation in their health care or their health issues could be due to the lack of their resources and things that aren't in their control, and we should go an extra mile to tailor our healthcare to each individual patient.